Now we'll be focusing on Trigo graphs in this video. In your syllabus, you are required to be able to sketch sine graph, cosine graph, and tangent graph. Now for sine graph, there is a shifting up and down. For cosine graph also. So this C is shifting up and down. Whereas tangent, you are not required to shift up and down. Alright. Now let's give ourselves an example here. Y equals 7 minus 4 cosine pi x over 6. Now what is the amplitude? Amplitude is the number that's in front of the sine, cosine. Okay, here. So in this case, you have to understand amplitude is just the absolute value of this number here. So whether it's minus or plus, the answer is still just 4. Okay, so a lot of students thought that the answer is minus 4. No, the answer is just 4. Whether it's plus or minus, let's have another example here, example 2. Whether it's plus or minus, right, your amplitude is just 5. Okay, so I will elaborate more later. Now for period of sine and cosine, it's the same formula. It's 360 divided by b, okay, or the number in front of the x. So in this particular case, you may think that there's no number in front of the x, it's just pi, right? Then you may think that there's a number under it, which is 6. But actually, the whole b is pi over 6. So to find your period, you need to take 2 pi divided by this b. Okay, but as I told you before, I don't like to write b over 6. That means I don't like to write 2 pi over our b is pi over 6, right? I don't like to write this, okay, because actually this means you flip, so it's 6 pi like that. Okay, so what I like to write is immediately I will flip this already. So pi over 6, I will put the pi here and then the 6 on top. Okay, and that will very conveniently cancel off the pi, and that will give me 12. So the period here is 12. Now what does that mean? It means that in one full cycle, this is a cosine graph. Cosine graph, you know, is like that: quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, right? Okay, in one full cycle, this is one full cycle. This period is 12. That means in 12, whatever the unit is, it makes one full cycle. Okay, now how to remember that this is the cosine graph? Let me just show you here. Okay, anyway, this is a cosine graph. It's not the minus cosine graph. I'm just writing here just to highlight to you how to differentiate between sine and cosine graph. Now, why is it that it's like that? Okay, as I mentioned to you, there are 4 quarters, right? So if you remember your ASTC, this is your ASTC. Okay, so you see the first quadrant, everything is positive, right? That's why cosine is positive. See, all these are positive values. Second quadrant, only sine is positive. That's why cosine is negative. You see, all these are negative values. Okay, and then third quadrant, only tangent is positive. All are negative. That's why cosine is negative. And the last quadrant, only cosine is positive. That's why cosine is here. So this is one way you can remember why the shape of the graph is like that. Okay, so if you think that this is a sine graph, then definitely this is not the sine graph lah. Because sine graph is supposed to be like that. One quarter, one quarter, one quarter, one quarter. So this one is like quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. Okay, so can you see that when I write A, S, T, C, it matches? What do I mean by it matches? First quadrant, all sine, cosine, tangent, they are positive. And in this case, my sine graph there is positive. What is on the positive side? Okay, it's above the x-axis, so it's positive. So this is another way you can remember. Second quadrant, sine also positive, right? There is positive, what? There, all these values are positive. Then third quadrant, sine is negative already. Yeah, there negative. And fourth quadrant, only cosine positive, right? So sine is negative. Yeah. So this is the sine graph. So that's one way you can remember if you need to lah. Then if I have a negative cosine graph, it will just be this red one. Okay, it's flipped here. The positive become negative, the negative become positive. Same here. Flip, flip, flip. Okay, so I hope you understand these basics first. Now I will go to the next question. So I want to repeat again, whether negative or positive coefficient here, okay, the number in front of the sine or cosine is your amplitude. Okay, always a positive value. Next, we calculate the period for this. Is 2 pi over b. And what's the b here? The b is the number that's in front of x, and the number that's in front of x is pi over 8, because it's actually pi over 8 times x. Then I combine the numerator. It's actually pi over 8 times x. Then I combine the numerator. That's why it's pi x over 8. That's how I get this here. Alright, now I divide by b, I flip, so the 8 goes up, the pi comes below, cancel, I get 16. So the period for this is 16. 16 what? Depends on the question. If there's no unit given, then it's 16 radians and 12 radians. Okay, but I don't need to write any unit for this case because there's no given context. Okay, example 3. What's the amplitude again? Although it's negative here, it's the number in front of the sine or the cosine. So this amplitude is 3, this amplitude is 5. Okay, and what's the period? Is 2 pi divided by the number in front of the x. The number in front of the x. Okay, so that will give me divided by pi over 12, but I flip it, so it is 12 and pi at the bottom, and I'll get 24. This one, I will also get 2 pi over flip this pi over 12. It will be pi here, 12 here, and I'll get 24 also. Alright. Now they want us to sketch the diagram for 0 to 24. Okay, so what does this 0 to 24 mean? Now it means we are not talking about degrees. Okay, once you don't see degrees here, it is radians. Understood to be radians. Okay, unless they give you another unit here. For example, normally it's time lah. Then they give you seconds, minutes, or hours, or days, or whatever. Okay, so if there's no degree sign here, that means you're working in radians. Alright. Now, how do I sketch this? There are two graphs that they want you to sketch on the same axis. So you pick the first one. Focus on the first one first. Alright. Then you ask yourself, what is there to focus on? Now, always the starting point is the center. The center, or what we call the central axis, is 5. Okay. Then I've revised with you before. Do you remember that this sign of whatever this thing here, this sign, this whole thing, the maximum is 1, the minimum is -1. Okay, this one we learned and we revised quite a few times. That means the maximum of this is when this whole thing is -1. So because -1 times -3 is +3, so it's 8. Okay, so you know that the maximum value for this is 8. Okay, let's try this. Maximum for this cosine, right? the maximum is also 1. Minimum is also minus 1. Okay, so if my maximum for this is 1, I'll get a smallest value. So I have to choose this minus 1 here. So that is 1 minus 5 times minus 1, which will give me 6. So 6 is the maximum for this. Okay, now that I know, this one, the maximum, this one, the maximum is 8, and the minimum is when this is 1, right? So it's 5 minus 3, so it's 2. This one, the maximum is 1 minus 5, 1 minus 5 times minus 1, so it's 6. It's actually 1 plus 5, which is 6. This one, the minimum is 1 minus 5, which is minus 4. Okay, why am I doing all this? Because I have to sketch these two on the same axis, so I need to know what is the maximum thing that I must draw here. And in this case, it happens that it has to be 8 lah. Where I see where 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I draw 8 here, and this is my y, right? Okay, maximum, you see 8, no other number bigger than 8 already. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now in your exam, you do not have, let me think. Yeah, you do not have all these lines, even for school exam. For O level, you only have plain white paper, okay, blank space for you. So my recommendation is you use the ruler, right? 1 cm represent 1 unit lah. So you draw 8 cm of this, and then you mark out 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 until you get the 0. Then you continue. Minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. Why minus 4? Because my smallest value is minus 4. Okay, for this graph. Alright, now you don't bother about this graph. You focus just on this one. Draw this one first, okay? Take one thing at a time. So I'm going to use a black color pen to draw this. The very first thing you need to start off with is the 5 here. Okay, so you draw this center line. This is what we call the center line or central axis. So you draw this dotted. Okay, don't draw a solid line. You must draw a dotted line. Okay, dotted, done. So this is your y equals to 5. Okay, next, you know that the highest value is 8. That means you see 5 plus 3, 5 minus 3. 5 plus 3 is the maximum. 5 minus 3 is the minimum. This is the very first thing you must do. Okay, you may find it very troublesome, but this is going to help you get full marks for your curve sketching, because once you set the maximum and the minimum, you know you cannot run away from all this maximum minimum. Okay, then your graph will be correct. Okay, next thing you must do is to find out what is the period. So the period is 24, right? That means in one full cycle you make 24. You will cover 24, and the so-called domain that they want you, or you can call it range, that they want you to draw, is until 24 also. So that's just nice. So I'm going to draw 24 here and also mark 24 here. Okay, then you take half of it. That will be 12. Okay, half of it, that will be 6. So all these are markings for you. So it will be 6, 12, 18. See, once you know the basic unit, you always split into quarters. Why? Because there are 4 quarters of an egg. Okay, so you can draw this if you want. If you don't want, then also can, but make sure that your maximum minimum value is accurate. So I would strongly recommend you draw this. Okay, so you draw like that, right? Then you can start drawing already. Okay, but you must be very clear that this is your center line. Do not be distracted by the x-axis. Okay, in fact, I will recommend you don't draw the x-axis. You can label here. Final step, then you draw the x-axis also can. Okay, so that you're not distracted. Okay, now let's study the graph further. I now have done this so-called period already. Okay, next is to find out what kind of graph is it. It is a sine graph and it's a negative sine graph. So just now we mentioned, right, that a sine graph looks like that, the black color one. The black color, but a negative sine graph will flip this here, flip this there, so it's the red one. So it's a quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. So it'll be like that. Starting from here, okay, if you don't know where to start, very simple, very simple. You just substitute x equals 0 here, but don't waste time in the exam. Substitute x equals 0, sine of 0 is 0. So this whole thing is 0, so it's 5. Okay, that's how you can know the shape also. Okay, then if you don't know whether you go up or go down, then you substitute any value and you substitute any value 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever here. Okay, then you know that it's going to come down here. Okay, but don't waste time. If you already know, don't waste time. Okay, so quarter of an egg. Quarter of an egg. Alright, you know the next one is going to be here and the next one is going to be here. Okay, so you can actually mark out like that. See, mark. Okay, so you see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why I teach you in the form of quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. And then when you join them together, right, it's an egg. Alright, so after you've done that, because you're asked to sketch two graphs on the same axis, you must label the graph. Because if you don't label, they can say that don't know which is which, then they mark you wrong. Okay, so this is the graph for this. Alright, so I repeat, this 5 is the center, and when you sub in x equals 0, of course this whole thing disappears, that's why it starts here. Okay, and this is the shape for the negative sine graph. Okay, we are done with this already. Now we are going to focus on this one. Okay, this one. Now this one, I'm going to use a red ink to draw. 1 means you start from 1, as in the center, your central axis is 1. Okay, now in the exam, of course you cannot use a different color ink like me. You have to use pencil for everything. Okay, you use pencil for everything, but now because I'm teaching you, so I'm using pen. Okay, so 1 is here. Now you know that this can be maximum of 1, minimum of -1, and when it's -1 times -5 give you +5, so the maximum is 6. Okay, so another way to look at it is I can go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my maximum. Okay, I need you to draw this first, then everything will fall in place. Okay, so this is y equals 6. Then from here you go down. Be very careful here. Students tend to see wrongly, then die already. Okay, so you see again, this is your center, which is 1. You go at -5, so -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and you'll come to -4. That would be the lowest point, minimum point for your this second graph. Okay, let me enlarge a bit, zoom out a bit. Okay, so this is how it looks like, and because this and this, the period are the same, right? So 24 works for both. Alright, now bear in mind, this is your center. Okay, and what do they want us to draw? They want us to draw minus cosine graph. Alright, so minus cosine graph, as I mentioned just now, okay, maybe you try to think, cosine graph, how does it look like? We think of A, S, T, C, because this represents all the different quadrants. Oh, so cosine is positive here, but cosine is negative here. So if I were to split it into 1, 2, 3, 4, cosine is positive here, so it's going to go how? It cannot go up like that, what? Cannot, right? Cannot go up like that because it's go up like, if you go up like that, it's going to come down like that, then it'll be positive, positive, but cosine is negative here, right? So it has to be come down, then like that, then like that, then like that. Okay? So if you don't know this, you really have to think of a way lah. Okay? You really have to memorize okay? Okay, another way to remember, okay, wait, before I go to the another way, this is A, S, T, C. Makes sense, right? Only A and C cosine is positive, right? Positive, all these are positive. Above x-axis, positive. Below x-axis, negative. Okay? So makes sense, Okay, now another way to remember maybe is like that, Okay, you draw quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. Okay? Those of you who are confused, I don't know which is which, Quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. Actually, it's just a continuation here. Can you see that? Okay, never mind. I show you later. Okay, so this one, if you were to put it this side, can you see what's going on here? Yeah. You draw already, right? You draw already. Okay, you draw already. The x, the x is here. X is here. Then when you flip over the other side, if your x is pointing upwards, right? Can you see the outline here? This is like a sine graph. This is like a cosine graph. It comes out as a C, right? Don't know whether you can see or not, but this is where the x goes, okay. So this is the one with the hole is your sine graph, right? Okay, let's pierce through, let's pierce through. Okay, of course you don't do this in exam, Okay, so can you see that this is the sine graph and this is your cosine graph? Okay, so if you don't know, in the exam you just draw on your rough paper and then you flip over and then you see okay, so that's one way. Sorry, that's many other ways already. Okay, so now let's come back. That's for those who don't know at all. Okay, so now we want a negative cosine graph, a positive cosine. You only need to know the positive, okay? Then later you flip. Positive cosine graph is like that, right? Negative will be flip this way, and flip this way. Okay, so it's the red one. So let's do the red one. Quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. 4 quarters. This is like your locate the middle first. Don't be confused. Locate the middle first. Where is the middle? The middle is here. Central line. So you know that this is where you start. Anyway, how do you know that this is where you start? You sub x equals 0 into your this one. Cosine 0 is 1. Okay, you don't believe, you press calculator. Cosine of this whole thing 0, right, is 1. 1 times minus 5 is minus 5. 1 minus 5 is minus 4. That's how you know this is the starting point. Okay, then you follow this curvature. It's going to be like that. Okay, I do the marking with a quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg, quarter of an egg. So you see how useful all these markings are. Okay, so it guides you, and the examiner, there's no way for the examiner to penalize you. So quarter of an egg, and quarter of an egg, and quarter of an egg. So this is your graph. Y equals 1 minus 5 cosine pi x over 12. Okay, now the question can ask you like this. I didn't add in the question here because ran out of space already. Find the number of solutions for the equation. Okay, use your graph. They will always say use your graph. to find the number of solutions for the equation. What equation? They will surely something like that. Okay. Can you see that this is this equation here, and this is this other equation here? So they are like asking you to use graphical method, not to solve, but to find out how many solutions, how many times they have the same value, how many times they have the same value. Okay, so it's one time, two times only. So you just say the answer is two solutions. Finish. That's it. Okay. Now, if they want to be very, very nasty, they may give you things like, see, if I manipulate this equation, right, I can change this to 5 cos pi x over 12. This one stay here. Pi x over 12 equals to, then I minus 5 both sides, then it's minus 4. They can do that. Okay, but how do you, let's say they ask you to solve this, how do you solve this question? It's something like your e-maths. You try to get whatever you have already. So this fella I already have, keep it on this side, but I want a 5 here and I don't want you also. You get lost. So you ask this fella to get lost, that means you have to minus this fella away. Okay, and you want the 5, right? So you plus 5 this side, you plus 5 this side, become a 1. You see, I get back this original. Then you know that, oh, it's actually this curve. You want it to intersect. Want to find out how many times they intersect this other curve. That's it. Okay, so remember to label all your diagram. Okay, as we revised before, they sometimes will ask you to draw another graph on the above axis after you have done this. Use your graph to determine how many solutions there are for this one. So this is a more difficult one. Can you see that this fella here is nothing like what you have drawn? You have drawn this fella and this fella, but what they ask you to draw is nothing like this equation or this equation. Got something like that. You see, this fella here is the negative of this, right? So what can I do as a start? Okay, as a start, I can do this. Do what? I want this negative. I notice that, oh, I just need this to be negative. So I times minus 1 times minus 1 times minus 1. So I will get minus 5 cos pi x over 12 equals 7. Oh, sorry, minus 7 over 12x plus 6. Agree? So that is, oh, quite near already. I got this part here. I just need one more. So I plus 1 to both sides. Plus 1 to both sides means plus 1 to here. Down here you cannot combine. So it's 7. Minus 7 over 12x plus 7. Okay, now you have this and you have this. Then you will find that, hey, how come I don't have this sine graph? Never mind, okay? Never mind. As long as you have one of the graph to cut this other graph, you are on the right track. So what you need to understand now is, this is a curve. This is a line. So the curve, you've already drawn the red curve already, right? So no need to draw again. You need to draw this line, which is your like y equal mx plus c. So how do you normally draw y equals mx plus c? Your e-maths teacher would have taught you. In fact, we have done this quite a few times in class also. You just need like 2 points, minimally 2 points. If you want, they put 3 points. And normally, you will choose the x values that can be seen here. You see, your x values are from 0 to 24, right? So of course you choose something from 0 to 24. You don't go choose 100. 100 is not even on your axis, right? So I will choose 0. It's a wise choice. Why? Because when I choose 0, this whole thing disappear. I get y equals 7. So 0, 7 is one of my point. I go and mark it down. 0, 7. Okay, so I mark across here. Okay, I'm going to choose another point that's convenient. What's convenient for me? I can choose any number from 0 to 24. I'm going to choose x equals to 12. Why? Because 12 divided by 12, they cancel each other out. I'll just get minus 7 plus 7, 0. Oh, so 12, 0, 12, 0 is another point. Okay, now after I've done this, I am going to join them up because once I have 2 points, now your 2 points cannot be too close when you do plotting like that. The further they are, the more accurate. So I'm going to draw this. Okay, and don't draw beyond, don't draw beyond. Okay, they will surely ask you to draw within this axis 0 to 24. So you draw, oh, there's only one solution, that's it. Now what does this one solution mean? It means that at this particular point, your x and your y values are the same. At any other point, my x value may be the same as your x value, but my y value is different from your y value. We are different. Okay? Any other point, we are all different, except this point, our x and our y values are exactly the same. Alright? So that is for Trigo graph.